Hey guys, it's your wannabe YouTuber here. So today I'm gonna be talking about something that kind of hits close. That kind of is different and definitely like I don't know, it just happens to everything. And I think that is I'm gonna be talking about death. Um, you know, death is kind of scary when you think about it. I mean, what happens after it, and what are the feelings that you feel when you're on your deathbed? And I mean, you've lived life. You've lived it already, and you're just ready to move on. And I think that that's such a strong feeling that I don't know. I hope to never ever experience until my time has come. Um, I think that um these thoughts of death are interesting because I don't know. I haven't been particularly surrounded by it. Um, Basically, I only have one grandparent left, and the other grandparent died when I was pretty little, so it didn't really have a huge impact on my life. Um, but my dad is part of an assisted living facility, and that's kind of a retirement for people who are getting pretty old and they can't live in their own little retirement apartment. So he so he kind of he definitely takes care of all the residents, and some of them get to be really old. I think one of the most memorable resident is this woman named Mrs. Graham, BJ Graham, and she lived to be 100. And I think her story pulls out something that's really interesting. Um, can you argue with death? I mean, I think, to be honest, her living conditions weren't ideal. I mean, you get to a point where, what is living exactly? Um, but she held on and she lived to be 100, and I think my dad told me that that was one of her goals. I think that, like, I don't know. It's really interesting how death is present and, can you control it? I'm not sure. These are the questions that need to be asked sometimes. I mean, it gets to a point where, her conditions were 1,000 times harder than living in your 20s trying to find a job, and it's different. It's a very different way of living, and you have to stay sedimentary, and you don't really do much. But I think that, there's some sort of relief and comfort that death brings, when someone passes. And I think it's not a bad thing. I think it's actually quite good that you feel that sense of peace and calm after they pass, and that you always think of them. So yeah, I'm kind of talking about this because she passed away recently. I mean, she wasn't really big, she wasn't any of a blood relative, but I think that her story has impacted me, and I don't know the way I think about death, because it's it's a subject that no one really wants to think about, and certainly I don't want to think about at this age. But her story, I don't know, it's interesting, and I just wanted to share that. Hey guys, I'm back again. I just wanted to talk about what it's like to have a pet. Um, and that pride you associate with having a pet. I didn't know you could feel that until I got my second pet hamster. We can talk about the first one later, but my second one was it stood out to me. First of all, his odds were not really in his favor in terms of his life. I think that, I mean, hamsters live 2 to 3 years in captivity. But this little guy was adopted from Petco, and I knew that those hamsters aren't bred to be exactly successful to pass on their genes. So, the cards were stacked against his favor. I don't even know if that's the idiom, but I'm gonna just say it just to sound interesting. But I mean, okay, first of all, it takes a lot to, have a hamster. I mean, I adopted this guy off Craigslist, which is crazy. I didn't drive, my mom actually drove because I was pretty young, but we drove an hour north to get this hamster and pick him up. crazy stuff, but I felt like this little guy, like, he was free, so I was like, oh, he needs a home, you know? I came back, and, basically, this hamster's enclosure is, if you ever look up an IKEA detail, like, hamster cage, that's what I had. And honestly, I don't know. I wasn't at an age where I needed to have a companion, like, if I was 7. I was kind of at an age where I'm like, well, I'm gonna do my thing, and he's gonna do his own thing, and that's gonna be okay. I'm honestly convinced that they got rid of him because they thought he was a biter. I never really took that risk because I really didn't care and I didn't want to pick him up, so I just honestly let him be. And I think that is awesome. And I think that's actually my secret, for keeping him for so long, living to be over 2 years. It's like that pride that that this hamster lived a long life, and I fed him all the best food I could find. I don't know, I just took care of him, researched the cage, and didn't bother him. And I think that his death really hit me in a hard way because it was actually my first, like, it sounds really morbid, but my first, like, pet who's kind of passed away body I saw. And I think that like, really made it real and kind of sad that, he once was full of life and now he's just gone. He's somewhere else. I think that really resonated with me. I remember that, like, up until his death, he wasn't in ideal conditions, He was quite frail, quite skinny. I could feel his spine. And I just kept on feeding him. I gave him, like, a slurry of stuff, because his teeth were too brittle to chew on it. And I just realized that, like, I became at peace with myself because I gave him the best life that he could have. And I think that he was really such a blessing. And that pride that I got to take care of him, I nurtured him. To be honest, because I cared so much for him, I felt a wave of relief, because he passed away. And I knew that he didn't have to suffer anymore. So, yeah, I just think that, this is just my story, but I think pets are really great. I gave him the most valuable thing, and that was a good home, a life, and no screaming children to torture him. And I think that, I have pride in that, and I think that that's possibly why I love hamsters, and why there's, like, their underdog story about them in the pet industry has really affected me and influenced me in the best way possible. So, yeah, I'd say if you're ever gonna get a pet, or if you ever need something, I feel like getting a pet is a really great idea. It not only like makes you take care of it, so you're not thinking of only yourself. It just makes you, like, a more selfless person, and it makes you kind of, like, feel that love for something else, and I like that about having pets. So I just wanted to share how, a small little rodent really impacted and kind of changed my life. So thank you guys for listening once again.